Grant, we have Councillor Deputy Mayor Morley.
They may join on. We're not sure. I don't know if we have confirmation if they're coming. Team, do you have any indication if either of them, if Councillor Deputy Mayor Morley or any other board members or besides Brenda are attending?
Live stream has commenced. Sorry. Jim is a no, Maureen is a possible, and we never heard back from Deputy Mayor Morley.
Okay,
So
that's
I'm
fine.
not sure there.
Okay.
Technically, you're okay to proceed if you'd like at this stage, Councillor Crisante.
Okay, we're up and running. We're live, and okay. Well, let's just start with good afternoon, everyone. This is probably as good a time as any to have a meeting. We end off the day with some good things we could do for our seniors. So, all right, got just a couple of comments I'd like to start off with. So, first of all, good afternoon and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Corporate Governance Human Resources Committee of the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. And it's, as everybody knows, it's being live streamed on YouTube. In addition to the participating board members and the leadership team, I'm very pleased to welcome our virtual audience, and I want to thank all of you for joining us. I also want to welcome Jill Abeda, who's our interim CEO, to our meeting. And if Deputy Mayor Morley and Maureen do come on board, then we'll acknowledge them at that point. So Jill joined us, as you know, in August of 23 as an interim period, while Tom Hunter is temporarily with TCHC as an interim president and CEO. So today, the key items that we discussed at last meeting, I should say, were governance. We discussed the governance work plan update, as we do at all the meetings, and the implementation of a meeting board committee feedback survey, which has now been in place. And in today's meeting, we're going to get an update from our CEO, Jill, once again. And we're going to review the governance work plan update, and we're going to discuss the property renaming of the Bathurst Place Toronto Senior Housing Corporation building as well later in the agenda. And we're going to get a people and culture update from Carol Francis. So for today's meeting, we have no deputations. Is that still the case, Grant?
That's correct. There are no deputations today.
Okay. And so we have present quorum. So then is Fareed here too? You're here, Fareed? No. Okay. So let me do the land acknowledgement at this point. So Toronto Seniors Housing acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe and the Chippewa, the Abenaki, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Toronto Seniors and then the African Ancestral Acknowledgement, Toronto Seniors Housing acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. So at this point, we need approval of the public meeting agenda, and know if there's any additions to this agenda. We could do that at this point. Anybody wish to add anything to this agenda, or are we good to approve the public meeting agenda as it stands?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so that was moved by Warren. Do we need a second here, Grant, or are we good for that? Okay, and
usually we have a seconder and then I vote. So I see Brenda.
I think Brenda just put her.
I'll second it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Brenda. So then, any conflict of interest from anyone? There being none, then item number 5, approval of the public minutes from May 16th, 2023. We could
So
get,
move, Mr. Chair.
and that is Warren once again, and second.
Can I ask a couple questions? on those
Yes.
minutes?
Absolutely. Before we move that, go ahead. Brenda.
And I think some of them might be taken up today. There was question about the capital budget and increasing the threshold. Will we have a report back on that? Or is that in
Through the
is that
chair.
it, or is that in the mix that's being looked at?
Councillor Crisanti, if I could help with this. So
Yeah.
Brenda, there's the action item list that's coming up later on in the
Okay.
agenda where those things have been captured. This item, we're just approving the minutes themselves.
Okay, and there's one other thing here. I'm just looking at my notes. Do the governance work plan. No, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Thank you. I see that some of them are being picked up at other items, so that's fine.
All right, so this item was moved by Warren and seconded by Brenda again. So
Yeah.
all in favor, then this is moved. That's item number 5. So item 6, another approval of the closed session meeting minutes of May 16th, 2023. If there are no comments on this item, then we'll just move for approval.
So move.
Okay, Brenda, and do we have a second?
Seconded by Warren.
That's Warren. All right. So at this point, we got item 7, which is the action item review. Now, Grant, I've got the list I have. Apparently my staff was telling me the updated list wasn't in this agenda. Are you going to put that on the screen?
I can put it on screen and our apologies if the package did, I believe it did have the action items in it, but if for some reason I'll put it on the screen now.
Well, yeah, Grant, it never came through and we weren't able to follow up in time to get it into my agenda. So if you can put it on the screen, we'll do a review with that.
Sure.
Yeah, I see.
Can
I had-
people see that?
Yep.
Okay, and we'll confirm whether or not it was in the package. So our apologies if it was not.
Great.
I'll just quickly highlight, if it's okay, Councillor Crisanti.
Yes, it is. Please.
Some of the status items.
Yeah.
So just to orient on the action list, and we've made this adjustment across the committees, we've moved all the completed actions to a separate section at the bottom of the list now. So you'll see that some of the actions coming out of the last meeting are now included in the completed section. And what you have at the top here of the list are now the still in progress items. So that's what we have here. And you'll see some of them go back to March and most of them are from the May meeting.
Right.
So we'll just go through them really quickly. The majority of them are in progress. There's actually 5 that are in progress, and then the rest of them, I just scroll a little bit, are all completed. And some of the stuff you had asked about, Brenda, is in the completed.
Yes, I can see.
So I'll just mention that with regards to number 1, this is an item that I need to follow up with the stack on, and I will be doing that at the next meeting. It's honestly, it's an item that unfortunately I think it was an oversight in a previous stack meeting to discuss with them. So we'll do that at their next meeting on the 27th of September.
So accessibility means what? Physical accessibility, disability accessibility?
It means broadly accessibility. It's generally when Stack was originally constituted, there was an aspect of accessibility that was envisioned, and
Okay.
the committee never formed that way though. So I just want to clarify that with the committee. It was meant to be broad in nature though.
Okay,
Right. So
next one.
So that one will close before the next meeting. I'll be able to close that fairly quickly with the staff.
Okay,
Number 2 and 3 are both with Arlene, and I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to give it a quick update. I know these are pieces of work that are in motion, Arlene.
Thanks, Grant. So we actually provided some of this information at our QTE meeting earlier in the year about the list of partnerships that we had in
Yes.
the various regions. So I feel like that we have provided the list already, but we can certainly recirculate that to this table if that's desirable. And then the work on partnership agreements and the effectiveness of zone.
Yeah.
That's still a work in progress that we have to complete and bring back to the table.
Yes, this was my whole point, and I did get the list of partnerships, thank you, earlier in the year. But it was the extra part about the qualitative part about what their scope it was and whether they were effectively doing that. Now, I assume that's being reviewed as part of your partnership and outreach thing. I can't remember the phrase that we use. And also, aren't you looking at the desirability, what type of partnerships you want?
Mhm.
Like,
You're correct, Brenda. I know we've had a conversation about that.
yeah.
So we are doing some work around the partnership portfolio overall. We have some agreements that we actually are rescoping, and we're looking to put in some more qualitative reporting metrics within the agreements with our partners moving forward. That work is underway, but the completion of that work is quite a few months in the offing.
Okay. And that will come back to us at what stage? At the stage that you've designed a policy to determine how you're going to go forward, or what point will you be reporting back?
We can certainly provide a more detailed report at a later date around here's the state of the partnerships, and which is a bit of what you already have.
Yeah.
But we are really at this point we'll come back later in the year to say we'll be able to identify the use of space partnerships and how that might have changed as part of the policy work that we're doing with Grant's team around use of space more specifically, because a lot of these partnership agreements impact that particular area. And then there are another set of agreements around referrals and head leases that we probably will not be able to do a full review on until sometime next year. We'll be able to bring back a report probably towards the end of the year, depending on the work that's done with the policy team around the use of space piece.
Yes, I'd like to have that if we could, because I think there are some broader policy issues here, but how we want to use our space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the flexibility for local building specific use, right?
Yes.
But in my key takeaway here for me is these partnerships we form with outside agencies. I'm not fussing about whether the Seventh-day Adventist rents on Saturday or not. It's really the interagency cooperation and collaboration, and whether they're delivering the supports to our tenants that they want, and that there's some accountability on the part of the contracting agency to ensure that those services and supports are delivered in the most efficacious way, I suppose, but also that really are attuned to the needs of the tenant built in the building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my main concern, because I know you can rent and form partnerships, but if they don't deliver, or if they take over in a way that denies access by other groups and individuals, then of course it's a more difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look forward to hearing back from you later on in the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene. I'll continue. And I'll just mention on this partnership stuff, Brenda, for awareness,
Yeah.
stuff that's generally reported through QTE committee, not in the great detail here. So you'll see more of that likely. So
Okay, I understand.
the reason I think it came up is because I was going over the governance work plan last time.
Yes, that's right. You're right on that. Yeah.
The next item on the list, number 4 and number 5, are somewhat related. We paused number 4. We had quite an extensive conversation last time about the capital policy. So we did pause sort of some of that action, but we did have an action to follow up on the regional capital funds, and Vince can speak to that. I know that's something that is an item that both Vince and Brad have coverage on.
Vince there. By regional funds, you mean what? Our region? You mean
by each of our
4 regions
have an
yes.
allegation.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of funding available in what's called the regional capital. And that's
Okay.
allocated across each of the regions, and operations actually is able to use that for certain types of work in the buildings.
Good, good.
Sorry, through the chair. Yeah. So with relates to number 5, we are currently, it's in progress. There are some available funds that we can use through the regional piece of it. A lot of this pertains to some of the capital item. And
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, Brad, I think you can probably maybe add in a few contexts in terms of what the amount we were working with respect to the allowance that's given to us through this process.
Yeah, through the chair. We have a $4 million allowance, which amounts to $1 million per region for regional capital initiative. These are initiatives that include things like purchasing treadmills for community rooms so that seniors can stay active, or amenity space upgrades, as well as the funds that we use for some of the upgrades to units, things like replacement of bathtubs, replacement of kitchens that require.
Okay, yeah.
And these funds and this allocation is done at the discretion of the region to ensure that those priorities are met at the building level.
Is there a dollar level at which we have to confer with Toronto Community Housing? Like, what point are our hands tied because of that relationship with them? And, how much independent decision-making can we make as a corporation?
Yeah, through the chair. Great question, Brenda. The only restrictions that we have are the procurement restrictions. So if we exceed, I believe it is $50,000, we're required to go out to a public tender for those.
Yeah.
For that, and then we follow TCHC's procurement policy, and our internal procurement team that's within Vince's department assists us with obtaining what we're looking for to support the tenants in the community.
And is there policy on procurement, et cetera? I mean, are we do we need possibly our own policy framework, or are we happy and accepting of the Toronto Community Housing framework?
Through the chair, yeah, we've got a pretty good relationship with TCHC procurement, and because it's an allocation of funds, we're not actually spending TSHC money.
Yes.
It's being procured through TCHC. The invoices are being submitted to TCHC, and it's being reconciled against TSHC's books.
Right.
Things are working in a good manner to deliver for our tenants right now.
So there's no bottlenecks here in our ability to move on things that we want to move on. We're not stymied by any restrictions by Toronto Community Housing.
No, there've been no impediments.
Okay. Okay.
So Brad, I'll just pick up on what Brenda was saying. So the $1 million per region, there's 4 million you indicated, correct?
Correct.
So that enables us to purchase capital items of whatever we need for each individual building to support the lifestyle of our tenants and health and safety. Is there any limitations on what that $1 million or $4 million could go towards?
Through the chair, yeah, it has to be a capital in nature. Things like painting and minor renovations like that would not be included.
Okay.
The general rule is that it has to exceed $1,500. It has to be the replacement or the purchase of an item with a useful life expectancy of in excess of 2 to 3 years. And these funds are in addition to the planned capital that we undertake with TCHC for items like roofs and heating and boilers and parking garages and items such as that.
Okay, no, that's good to know. The increase of the $1,500 capital threshold, I remember having some discussion about that some time ago. That number is low. Where are we with that in terms of reviewing that number?
Through the chair, it's a conversation that we've had. It's really a bookkeeping issue that allows us. We want to be able to have the flexibility in order to capitalize these sorts of items. So keeping that dollar figure for the threshold at $1,500 is advantageous to TSHC and delivery of services to our tenants.
So you're recommending it stays at that $1,500 for now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And this is with respect to the regional money, or this is in general for the capital?
This is a rule that's in place all across the nonprofit sector. Applies to co-ops, nonprofits, and originated at the service manager at the City of Toronto some time ago.
Through the chair, I have my own hand raised as well. I'm not sure you see me,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yes, Vince, I just saw it. Go ahead.
yeah. So with respect to the threshold, whenever we make any sort of changes to the threshold, we need to consult with TCHC because
Right.
again, we are working with them in conjunction, and also some of the money that they receive as a part of the capital tranche of money, they have to comply by certain rules and regulations.
Right.
So I mean, we did have preliminary conversations with TCHC relating to this amount. At this point, they're not looking to raise it because certainly, like to Brad's point earlier, it is more advantageous to have it set at a lower level. Therefore, can capitalize more. Certainly, there's more work to be done on that basis there. But at this point right now, there's no sort of appetite to increase it beyond much higher than the 1,500 at the current amount. But certainly we will review it and update that more finally in the upcoming period. I know that one of the biggest conversations that we have is that we don't have a lot of capital piece of it, but whatever capital that we do go through, it sits within TCHC's book, and therefore we have to comply based on their rules and regulations and policies as well.
So
Thank you, Vince.
how
Go
does
ahead.
it benefit us to keep the numbers at 1,500? It means,
So essentially, if the number is lower at $1,500,
Yeah.
Thereby any item that can pass through, we don't basically push it through over to the operating expense. So therefore, it keeps and maintains it as on the balance sheet account instead. So certainly, it has some implications from a from an operation perspective, because again, the lower that amount, the more you can capitalize, and therefore essentially be able to use less of the operating funds in this case.
okay. So it runs parallel then to our operation. So it allows us to be flexible with this dollar amount and the regional money as well.
Correct.
We're not as, okay. So it's anything over 1,500 then goes it to Toronto Community Housing for approval, or just, what's the 1,500, below or above that number that we,
So basically, anything $1,500 and higher, and it has a useful life of more than 2 to 3 years, then therefore we do have an option to capitalize those items.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I understand. Yeah, I can see that now. So it allows you to take more items off the operating and into the capital.
Yes, correct.
And that could include larger scale, like garden things, leisure activity equipment. That is durable and substantial.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I understand.
All right, thank you, Brenda. So Grant, that covers 4 and 5, I believe.
Yeah, so, and I'll just maybe wrap up on this and saying that the rest of the items that were in the action list from last time and previous items are now completed.
All right, so just scroll through the rest of them. Oh yeah, did we do the religious, did we get that included? Dave, I don't know if you can answer that, or Carol.
Yes, hi Brenda. We're looking at a overall policy review, so it's noted, and then as we go through, we will be revisiting this policy as well.
Okay. I've been asking for this for 2 years. That's why. So since I started. So is there an expectation that we can, or are we stuck with collective agreement things? I mean,
I can provide an update at a later date, but
Okay.
Right now we've added it because there are a number of I call it the key policy review. And there are
Yeah.
some critical policies that we want to review again in light of everything that's changed for TSHC. So once we do that, we will look at it through that lens. So it's been noted that this is one of the key policies we'll review.
Okay.
Brenda, I'm wondering, instead of going through everything, because the list gets fairly extensive, if I could maybe just go to the ones from the last meeting, would that
Yep.
be okay?
Yep.
So I'll just scroll down to the sort of the bottom here. So we had provide further information on the regional capital funds. We just had a sort of a further conversation on that, and I know Brad has provided that. We added some stuff to the survey from last time. That was the post-meeting survey, which we will do after this meeting as well. And that was completed. And then Dave had an action about extending the confronting anti-Black racism training to board members, and that
Yes.
was also action. So those were the other remaining things from the last meeting.
And my quick question is, how many board members receive the anti-racism training?
Possibly Dave or Carol could speak to that.
I don't have the exact numbers, but I can get them. I'd have to just pull the report and I'd be able to tell you.
All right, Dave, do you know? Dave Slater, The reason I'm asking this is we're asking it to be mandatory and compulsory for the staff. I think it's to show good faith, we as board members should take and equally have a participation rate. It's 90%, I believe, 95% of the staff have taken it. So I'm quite pleased with that. It really is a good sign of our staff willingness to participate, and you don't often get it that high. So kudos to our staff and their supervisors. So likewise, I'd like to see similarly the board participation rate being parallel to that. And if they haven't participated, Fareed's not on this call, is he? No. I'd like to ask through the chair, Counselor, if you could ask either to yourself or the board chair, I'm not certain, consult with the non-participating members to determine if they will be participating, and if not, why not? I'd like to get some accountability into this. You know, we talk all this talk, but if we're not going to participate ourselves, then it's a little cynical and two-faced. So
Brenda, good point you're raising, and I'm not sure who can answer this question, Grant, but
yeah,
how often is this training available, and how do you make it known to us? And can a communication paper go out to anybody who hasn't already had it, to advise them that there's upcoming sessions over the next period of 2 to 3 months, or whenever it is that you're offering it, so it could be we can accommodate it, or they can accommodate it in their calendar, and hopefully get everybody 100% involved.
Through the chair, and I know Carol or Dave may be able to. I know that information was shared with the board members, with opportunities to express whether they were interested in attending. I don't know if we have the actual numbers that attended here. We can follow up on that. My understanding is that Fareed did not make the training mandatory for board members.
Yeah.
However, we can certainly reach back. There are some dates upcoming next week for the training that there may be spaces that board members could participate in potentially. And then Carol or Dave would be able to speak to future training dates that would go beyond next week.
Oh, that'd be great if we can share the future training dates, because next week may not work for in short. Some people. Then so maybe that'll assist Brenda in getting to a better place down the road.
Yeah.
Very great. Okay. All right. So anything else on this, Grant, before we move on?
That's the end of the list. Yes.
Great.
Thanks so much, everyone. That's good. So that's item number 7 completed. And now we're going to hear from our CEO, Joe Beda. Joe, where are you? There you are.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Councillor Crisanti.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be here at my first committee meeting with you. And I'm delighted to be actually back here with the team to keep things moving over the coming months while Tom, as Councillor Crisanti mentioned, is over at TCHC. I have to say, in my early days rejoining the team, I have been so impressed with the progress that the seniors housing team staff have made since I was last here. And it has been just astounding how much they've been able to accomplish. And I've been receiving great support from the team since I returned in early August. This team is very focused, as you likely know, on translating our interim strategic directions into real performance management plans. And we are beginning the planning for 2024 goals for staff, as well as getting ready to complete performance plans for 2023 for staff. We're also getting into the initial days of our 2024 budget work, and we are working with the city and TCHC on the consolidated TSHC submission to the city, and we'll be bringing more details forward to the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee and the board as we get into the coming weeks. From a governance perspective, we have two new board members that joined in August, Deputy Mayor Amber Morley and Maureen Clossy. We also want to thank Councillor Pasternak, who concluded his time on our board at that time as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on items that we're going to cover on today's agenda, but we will be giving you some updates and progress on overall our governance work plan for Toronto Seniors Housing Corp. And the work that was developed with this committee in late 2022. And we'll also be, as Councillor Crisanti identified, sharing a report regarding a request to rename Bathurst Place at 3036 Bathurst Street. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that. And Carol will be doing a people and culture update highlighting the continued efforts on confronting anti-Black racism, as well as upcoming employee engagement and equity, diversity, and inclusion surveys. I also want to introduce Carol Francis, our new Director of People and Culture, to the committee, as this is also her first meeting. And that's really it. That's my update for today. And on that note, I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. And I just noted too, Maureen's online now. Welcome, Maureen. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you very much.
And good to have you on board. So now we'll move on to item number 9. As we just heard, the renaming of Bathurst Place, 3036 Bathurst. And I think we have a report from Grant that you're going to share with us on this and the steps taken or need to be taken to accomplish this.
Thank you. So through the chair, in your package, there is a report that details this particular request, and I'll summarize at a high level here and then take any questions. So a couple of years ago, Councillor Cole at the City of Toronto made a request to Toronto Community Housing to consider renaming Bathurst Place, which is a building now a Toronto Seniors Housing building at 3036 Bathurst Street, from what its current name is, the Bathurst Place, to a new name called the Mike Feldman Place. And it's in honor of former Councillor Mike Feldman, also was a deputy mayor at one point, and also was a housing advocate. When the original request was made to TCHC, they considered it, but they were looking for some guidance from the city with regards to commemorative naming. At the time, the city was working through a process. Subsequent to that, the city did actually create a commemorative naming policy and process. And then the item was referred to Toronto Seniors Housing earlier this year. So in March of this year, TCHC referred it to us because the building is now part of our portfolio versus theirs. And we started to look into this in more detail. So we did reach out and work with the city, the Strategic Partnerships Office at the city that has the oversight on the commemorative naming policy. And we got some guidance about how to apply it within the context of a corporation of the city. And the process that we put forward to you in this report essentially follows the city process. So we're looking to mirror what the city process is to consider requests for renaming city properties. And the process, the 4 steps that are articulated in the attachment on the report do follow that, as well as the process associated with the application details. We're using the same forms, consent, for example, and the details of the application that the city requests. So we are mirroring and following the city process. So that is what is before you in this report for consideration and approval to take forward to board. With regards to 3036 Bathurst, Councillor Cole, we've had opportunity to engage with Councillor Cole's office and Councillor Cole with regards to his request for this. We know that Councillor Pasternak, our former board member, was very interested in this as well. So we did meet with him prior to his departure from our board about this. And there has been some effort to get some of the process started with regards to this so that we could actually move forward on this consideration. So within the package today, you'll see some material that was actually provided and shared with tenants about Mike Feldman to give some context for this request and why it's being brought forward. And we've also supported the councillor in having a tenant consultation meeting back in August in the building with tenants to get some feedback on this proposal. And in that meeting, we did get some positive feedback with regards to the change. And our request here is for us, for this committee to consider us continuing to work with Councillor Cole's office to finalize the details of the application, review that, and then bring it forward to the October board meeting for consideration for approval. And I'll stop there and I'll take any questions.
Any questions? I think we had Okay, Brenda, you go first. I thought I saw Lawrence before, but go ahead, Brenda.
Just a couple short ones. Where is the building? Bathurst near where?
So it's at the corner of Bathurst and Lawrence in
Oh,
our
that,
Northwest region.
okay, that was the old National Council of Jewish Women building, wasn't it? That we took over?
I honestly don't know whether that is. I know the building was constructed in 1992.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know what its former sort of
Okay.
use was.
I know the building where my doctor's office is. And my only concern, I'm happy to support, I do remember the gentleman, is when you name locations and places after a person. I mean, do we do our due diligence to make sure there's no skeletons in the closet, and we're not going to have people, years later say that he was, I don't know, his family owned slaves like Dundas Street, right? That's my only hesitation about naming it after a person. But I have nothing against the gentleman, but I'm just asking that we have procedures to make sure that we do some sort of due diligence. And and I noticed there was only a few people who attended that meeting in the building, so keep in mind it's a fairly limited tenant consultation.
So I think, Jill, you wanted to respond to that, or?
Yeah, if I could, and then I'll let Grant elaborate. But through the chair, I think as Grant said, TCHC, when this originally came forward back in 2020 as a request, didn't have a formal policy. And after further discussion at that time with the TCH board, as well as even the transition group to the corporation, it was decided that best practice would be to rely on the city's public building naming practice and policy. So that's what we are in fact using in the abs. I mean, to be honest with you, it's not something we actually have had a lot of in our history.
Right.
So and it's not very common either. So we did follow the practice, and Grant, I can assure you, and his team have been lockstep with, I believe came through Councillor Pasternak's office, lockstep with him and his office to make sure they knew exactly what things they needed to do to pursue the renaming of the building. There was, in relative, scope, there was a decent turnout to the public meeting about the naming at the site, but it did receive unanimous support from those that attended. So Grant, I don't know if you have anything else to add. It's a very unusual request, but I don't know whether the policy or the practice, includes looking into someone's ideology or historical behavior related to naming. I'm not sure.
So maybe thank you, Jill, and just through the chair. So there are two components in part of the process that the city has, and one of them is it says be informed by historical research, traditional knowledge, and community insight. So there is a piece of the process that does have that, and we'll work together with Councillor Cole's office on the material submitted on that piece. And then the other key core element of the process is meaningful community engagement. I'll just reference, to Jill's point, we did have, I think it was 11 tenants that actually attended the meeting, but we did do a door drop, so all tenants received the information. It wasn't just posters, so we did try to get an opportunity. Councillor Cole did attend, and so did a member of former Mike Feldman's family to help also be there to speak to it. So we do know the family is supportive of this as well.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, Grant, I think Warren, you got a question as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just a point of clarification after listening to Grant and reading the materials for the meeting, that we're not being asked, though, at this point in time and making a recommendation to the board on the substantive merits of the issue. All we're doing at this point in time is deciding whether or not the process should continue and following its course. Assume that's correct.
So through the chair. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
No, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, and my apologies. A little bit of background noise that may be coming through from my microphone because there's somebody with a very loud stereo in the outside in the driveway of the building. So yes, you're right, Warren. At this point, we're asking for endorsement of continuing to consider this request to rename And then following the process we put in front of the committee today, and then ultimately to take it all forward to board. It is an item we'd ask for the committee to vote on today to move forward to board, but not necessarily for approval at this stage, the actual name change. That'll come to the October board, subsequent to working with Councillor Cole's office and finalizing some of the documentation that's required for this process.
Well, Grant, just one quick, oh, sorry,
Maureen.
Maureen, go ahead, you go first.
Thanks, Councillor Crescenti. Just one quick question, and I apologize up front. I did not go through all of the material prior to this meeting today. But I'm wondering if the background or history on Mike Feldman was included in that. And if not, should we be reviewing it before moving forward with anything?
So through the chair, so Maureen, yes, we did include an attachment in the report.
Yeah,
that
there was.
provides,
Yeah.
it's really a one-pager. This is the information that was also provided to tenants to help them get a bit of understanding of this too. So we did include that in this report, and we would include that when we go to board as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's fairly detailed, his background, so it was nice. It was a nice summary.
Yeah. So Grant, just to recap something you just said a moment ago. So the purpose today is just to move this forward for further study to the board of directors, and this will be coming back to this board at a later date in October.
So our through the chair, so we would not be bringing it back here to Corporate Governance and Human Resources Committee. What we would do is be bringing it forward to the board meeting in October.
To the board meeting in October. Okay.
Yeah, on October the 28th, I believe it is.
Yeah.
All right. And it'll get ratified at that meeting.
It would be ratified at that meeting, yes. So essentially the recommendation is we're asking CGHR to approve and recommend to the board to, number one, approve the property naming process that we've attached in the report, and then to endorse us to follow the city's commemorative naming process and continue to assess and work with Councillor Cole's office on the proposed name change.
Is there enough time to assess it by that date? There seems to be maybe quite a bit more work to be done still.
We're hopeful that we can make that timeline work, given the sort of the original ask was from over 2 years ago, or around 2 years ago at this stage. We're hopeful to try to move it forward if we can. If for some reason there is an unforeseen complexity to the assessment, then we would assess that and determine whether we're able to complete it in time.
Okay, Warren?
Mr. Chair, just a thought. It seems rather strange to me that staff would be presenting something directly to the board without a recommendation from a committee. And I would have thought that once the staff have gone through the entire process and made a decision as to whether or not the name of the building should be changed, that it should be brought back before our committee so that we can, at that point in time, consider the merits and make a recommendation to the board.
That's a good point, Warren. That's why I guess I asked that question earlier, Grant. So why not, can we change the process to do just that, Grant?
Aren't we doing that today? I mean, are we
No,
not?
no, we're just looking at the process.
So through the chair, our hope was to try to work as sort of to expedite where we could and bring it forward based on this conversation if the committee was comfortable. If it's the committee's desire to have us do the further work with the councillor's office and then return back to this committee with a recommendation to go to board, then we can certainly do that. It would take longer to get through the process to get it to board, but we can do that if that's the prerogative of the committee. So it is an option.
Okay, let's hear from Jill before I make my comments. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you. So my only question is, if the committee decides that they do want us to return before going to board, what exactly would the committee be asking us to bring back to that next meeting that we aren't sharing today? Because I believe, as Grant said, maybe we weren't clear. The information that's attached in terms of the background and the work that has been done by the councillor's office, as well as with the support of our staff, is really the foundation of the recommendation for the name change, unless I'm mistaken, Grant. And so I just would want to be clear, if you want us to return, what other information will we bring back to this committee that we don't already have today in
So
order to move this to the
maybe I
board?
could, if I can interject, I could, clarify that, because the recommendation 2 specifically says that endorse TSHC staff to follow the city's naming process and continue to assess and work with Councillor Cole's office and then make. So it sounds like there's more work to be done and continue to assess it, assuming through that assessment, there's going to be some new information or some additional information to be shared before any decision is made to move forward with that name change. And I think that's what Warren is saying. Should we not be aware of all the details and all the information, and then make our recommendation to the board and say, yes, we're in agreement, go ahead.
Well, isn't the attachment you sent here, attachment 1, property naming process? That's the one that's consistent with city or TCH policy. I can't remember which one.
So through the chair, the
It-
attachment 1 is consistent with the city's policy. The
City's policy.
TCH, just for reference, TCHC doesn't have a policy on this.
Oh, okay.
So we're asking the committee to endorse the process in attachment 1 to go forward to board and take that forward for approval at the end of October. The only new information that will be coming in is the formal detail in the application form from Councillor Cole's office, which I just got a text, have just received. So we will be assessing the details in there in light of the city's what they call guiding principles. We don't anticipate any concerns or issues with that. However, that was the next step we were going to do, and then subject to that assessment, bring it forward to the October board, assuming that assessment is realizes a recommended approval. If that assessment doesn't achieve that, then we wouldn't go to the October board. So that was what we were hoping to do, to kind of do it concurrently rather than having to wait the 2-month cycle between meetings to move it forward.
Yeah.
So our preference was to try to move it forward, because I know there was a lot of interest to kind of move forward on this because it's been sitting around for a while.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
hope was we could take it from this meeting here to the board.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm okay with it. I don't want to delay it. It's, I'm sure it'll be in the hands of the board and all the information will be there. And, and I guess we have, well, personally, I'm okay and have the confidence that it'll be dealt with in the proper manner. I'm not sure that we really need to come back to this committee, given what I just heard. Warren, any comments you want to add to that?
Well,
I hear your point, Warren, about process. I hear you.
yeah, the process.
Yeah,
I guess the problem I had was with the materials and what I thought was what we were being asked to do at this meeting.
Mhm.
And I've got that issue. I've got the issue that you've got to, these naming issues are so tricky. And, you just, the due diligence has to be 110% completed before you start making decisions on these things, because you never know what's lurking. Brenda has mentioned that the fiasco with Dundas Street, and every time you read the papers, there's always some issue of that similar kind cropping up. Ryerson is another issue. So I know next to nothing about Mr. Feldman. I'm sure he's deserving of this honor, but I just think that we've got to follow a very intensive process if we're going to be having the board decide whether or not the naming should be changed.
And I think, Warren, what you just heard is that detailed, intensive process will be followed
done
prior to going forward.
Yes, it will be followed.
Yeah.
And once it is followed, and the decision has finally been made based upon everything, then I think it should come back to the committee. But that's only my view, and if everybody else is comfortable, I'm happy to go with the majority.
Any other comments on this, Grant or Jill, before we move on and take a vote?
I just have a query.
Brenda?
Is this something that we should vote on today? Have we got sufficient information to vote on it today? My point of raising this was not to delay things, and I don't mind naming and renaming things, you know, whatever your political position is on these things. So I don't want to, you know, add to the hesitancy and inertia that often happens. But I just, my reason for asking those things is just general, you know, risk assessment and general due process concerns. And
Brenda, we are being asked, this is an action item, we're being asked to vote on just moving the process to the next step, not
yeah,
any decision other than moving it to the next assessment of this step.
yeah,
Or the policies, whatever those policies are in a renaming process. That's what we're being asked to do, and that's it at this point.
then it means we'll have to delay it to the December board meeting then for the final. If we're asking for some of these things to come back to us as a committee, and then we as a committee recommend to the board. I'm like Jill, I'm not certain how much more we're gonna get. So, you know, why, you know, is there anything more that we can expect? If not, you know, maybe the decision can be made today.
Through the chair, I mean, what we would have, and this is what we would include in the report to board, is just a little bit more, we could add a little bit more detail on how the application does more specifically address the guiding principles of the city. That would be information we would get in the application form. And that would be something we would summarize probably for the report to board. That would probably be mostly all that would be new.
Yeah.
And we don't anticipate there being an issue with that. If there was an issue with that information that we had not anticipated, then we would review that and determine whether it made sense to bring forward. So the ask here today is for approval to move forward to board on the process. That's the first part, which is the attachment 1. And the second is to continue to work on moving forward on the renaming for 3036 Bathurst based on that process.
Yeah.
And based on the results of that process, clearly, if the results are.
And we've been trying to do it concurrently so that we could show that we were being responsive to this request. Yeah. And, you know, we could have done it in sort of a more sort of sequential staged manner where, you know, we took the whole process on its own and then came back later. But we knew that would take several months to actually, and we thought there was enough information coming forward that we would be able to do it concurrently.
Yeah.
Maureen, question?
Yeah, as you just said, Grant, it is two separate pieces here. And just one question, who wrote the bio on Mike Feldman that we received?
Well, through the chair, it was provided by Councillor Cole's office.
Cole's office, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, because Councillor Cole at the time was not a city councillor. I believe he was an MPP at that point. So he would have known and worked with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Jill?
Yeah, and if I could, just to further clarify, I want to say our staff have worked collaboratively from a process perspective on this particular item, but the onus on following the procedure that the city uses, filling in the forms, the documentation, et cetera, that resides with the requester, which was in fact Councillor Cole.
Yes.
So we have not been the pursuant, if that makes sense, or the applicant for this. That has been originated out of the councillor's office. We have simply been involved because it's one of our buildings and because we are looking to adopt this policy that the city uses for any instances like this that should come up in the future.
Okay, thank you, Jill. So then why don't we just put this to a vote? This, if we're whoever's comfortable in moving to the next step. How many members do we have? We have Maureen and Warren, Brenda,
and
who else?
1,
Four?
2, 3, 4, 4, including you. No, 5, Lawrence.
There's 5 folks on the call today.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, 5. Okay, so
5 board members.
If there's any final comments, or can I just put this to a vote and we'll see if we get this passed?
I just want to say thank you to the committee for your consideration. This was a bit of a complex issue when we first took it on, and our goal has been to try to make it as straightforward to bring forward, and we'll continue to try to endeavor to do that. So no other points, Councillor Crisanti.
Mr. Chair, do we have a resolution to consider?
We do. Well, we have a recommendation in front of us, yes.
Where is it?
Where's the resolution?
Is it printed?
Well, I have it in my package. There's a recommendation to, you want to put it on the screen, Grant? Maybe so
Yeah,
everybody can see
yeah.
it, just in case. Do you mind? if you
Give me 1 second, I'll get it on the
It's
screen.
it's the lawyer that's coming out in these, I
No.
apologize. I apologize, Mr. Chair.
No worries at all. It's there.
That,
I'll put it on the
oh,
screen.
you're not just a pretty face, Warren.
No, I'm not. And I keep telling you that, Brenda.
Can folks see that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe.
So I'll read it out to make sure you're all comfortable. So it's recommended that CGHRC approve and recommend to the board of directors to, 1, approve the draft property naming process for TSHE buildings as outlined in attachment 1.
That's okay.
That's the first piece. And then 2, endorse TSHE staff to follow the city's commemorative naming process and continue to assess and work with Councillor Cole's office on the proposed name change for 3036 Bathurst Street, Bathurst Place.
Can I, okay, a nitpick, the use of the word endorse, shouldn't it be direct?
That's fine. If you would, I can, if the committee is open to requesting a change on the wording,
Sure.
I think that's fine as well.
Direct makes sense, yeah. We're directing them, we're asking them to.
Yeah, yeah,
proceed
that's
and
fine.
follow city.
Continue, yeah.
Well, and that's why we have a lawyer on board here.
He's so boring.
Or a grammarian. Have we got any grammarian? Where's our English majors when we need them?
Because we're using a PDF, I'm sharing a PDF version of the file. It would be a little bit, I'm not going to edit it on the fly here.
No, don't, because you'll probably.
If folks are comfortable with the word direct there,
Yeah.
then we'll take that language back and use that. I think it is intended to mean a similar action.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm happy to see continue to assess. I'm glad those words are in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And it will be Councillor Cole's office that will be submitting the application, presumably,
Yes,
because he's endorsing and supporting it. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
yes. And
So-
and they have actually submitted it.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Oh,
you.
they have. Oh, okay. All right. All right.
So let's take it to a vote. So all in favor, show of hands.
Can you see us?
I can see, we got 3, I see 3, 4 hands. I don't see a.
Where's Lawrence? Yeah, Lawrence. There he is.
Okay, so, all right, thank you. So it's unanimous, it looks like.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. All right, so that's item number 9. And
Number 10.
number 10 now, governance work plan, that I believe we have Grant, some information from you on that, an update as well.
Thank you. Yes. So through the chair, I'll try to expedite on this one a little bit. So in front of you, and we did this at the last committee meeting as well, I provided a verbal update in the main meeting. This time we've moved to a written update, so a little bit more specifics about it. And what we've actually provided as an attachment in here is a summary of all the items in the governance work plan and where they stand as completed, in progress, or not started. I won't go through each of the items in detail like I did last time, other than to say that a number of the things that were scheduled for completion are either complete or in progress. And we'll continue to work on those items. This governance work plan, for reference, has also been aligned into the interim strategic directions. So it is something that is also being monitored through the interim strategic directions process as well, that we reported on at Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee last week, actually. So, and then the attachment does show the status of the items. The intent is that we'll continue to use this work plan for the remainder of 2023. And then we would revisit that in 2024 if there needs to be a further review of the actual work plan. If you recall, this was something that this committee considered back about a year ago this time in its first iteration, and then there was a board workshop in March of this year where it was refined a bit. This is the refined version after the board workshop.
Yeah.
And I'll take any questions.
Okay, I got one if no one else. Oh, Brenda, you go first then.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, just one question I had. What's prevented us from starting some of these items that are not started? Yeah, that's my question, Grant. Like, why is there a reason why we haven't been able to start them at this point?
You mean the lease agreement and operating agreement?
No, there's 3 items, Brenda.
Small things like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's the big one for all of us, isn't it?
That's correct.
I'm
So-
going to suggest that if we would like to talk about the status of the lease agreement, and that it might be a good topic for the in-camera discussion.
Sure.
But with
Sure.
regards to the other items that are not started, they weren't scheduled to be delivered until later on. So that's the only one, the lease agreement, operating agreement with the city. We actually are following up with the city on the operating agreement. That was something that we had originally started on way back, but it hasn't moved forward. The lease agreement, I think, would be subject to an in-camera discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then the skills matrix is not till the fourth quarter, right?
yeah,
Skills matrix is coming up, yes.
And director development is next
coming up to,
first quarter the next year.
So this, if you recall, the plan when it was set was
Yep,
for the 2 years, and the intent was that some things would happen this year.
That's
and
right.
some would be
That's
next
right. I remember that. Yep. And the risk management, I did read have you hired the contractor who's going to be doing that report? I know you put out an RFP for it.
Just to clarify on the risk management, we have not actually issued the RFP to bring on board a resource yet. We're finalizing the RFP for that and hope to have that out very shortly so we can bring on a resource this fall to start that work. And we will actually be updating that next week at the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. I'll be there.
okay, and is there any other hands here? No other questions? All right, so I don't think this requires a vote. We're just receiving for information, correct?
That's correct.
All right, item number 11, people and culture update. And who's doing that? Carol? Carol?
Yes,
is there?
that's me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So I have two updates. One on confronting anti-Black racism or the CABR training. And then the second one is on employee engagement, equity, diversity, and inclusion survey.
Yeah.
So with respect to the CABR training, I mean, the background is it was developed in 2020 with TSHC as well as the Center for Advancing the Interests of Black People. Right now, the training focuses on increasing employees' understanding of anti-Black racism, recognizing and identifying how anti-Black racism appears in the workplace and how it affects the organizational culture and our ability to provide service delivery to tenants. And then third, identify how to apply anti-Black racism lens to our work. The training is a full-day training. It started April 26th of this year. We have thus far had 213 of our staff members who are trained. We are looking at upcoming sessions this year to ensure full compliance. So as was stated before, next week, we've got 3 days already booked where we've assigned the training. And then we will start to look at earlier, perhaps in October, to make sure that we catch everyone this year. It's been duly noted, Brenda, that you had sort of inquired about board members. So I will follow up on that and make sure that we get the training dates out to the board members. And then we will assess when we can schedule this training in 2024 to catch any new hires. Any questions on the CABR training update?
I attended, and I'm completely cynical about these things because I've been did these things 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and I have a very biased and cynical view about the effectiveness. But I was quite impressed. I thought it was a very good workshop. If you can convey that to them, the presenter was a good presenter, and I thought she engaged conversation, and people responded well. So, it was a safe space for people to speak and participate. So as a completely cynical old broad on these things, I lived through years of it not working. I would say it was a very positive experience. So I would support. And actually, you were with me, weren't you, Maureen? Yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
I felt it was very good as well, but it was it was soft. I was expecting something more intense.
Yeah.
And then I realized afterwards that perhaps everybody else is not ready for something more intense.
Yeah.
So
It's a good-
even
good
looking
point,
down the road at something with more of a two-tier presentation might be effective. But it was good.
Carol, thank you. Any other questions for Carol?
And my last comment is I had mentioned earlier, requesting either the chair of the committee and or the chair of the board follow up on conversations with staff, with board members who were not able to participate, just to ensure compliance and support. I want that extra step acknowledged in our minutes or in our direction. And, you know, that's it for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So, Carol, we'll be doing that in terms of extending that invitation to all board members, ensuring that we have adequate dates moving forward. So we try and accommodate various different schedules.
Yes, I see here that there's
October
We'll do
sessions too.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
Brenda or myself?
Actually, both of you. So,
Carol, you go. I think I accidentally.
No, I said duly noted, will do.
oh, okay. And I'm sorry, Brenda, and you were.
I'm fine.
You're fine. Okay, thank you, Brenda. And okay, so that's item or Brenda for that update. It was great. Not Brenda, I mean Carol. Okay, for that update. And of course, Brenda, your questions are always great. Thank you. And now
We can swap, Carol.
we can move to.
I have a second update, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, on the employee engagement and EDI survey.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I will spare you the verbatim reading, but in what I understand is in May 2023, we embarked on the journey of procuring an organization to complete the EDI and engagement survey. There was an RFP. We've selected Flex Surveys. It's a Toronto-based research firm that specializes exclusively on workplace-related surveys. The target release date of the survey would be November 1st for a 2-week period. And so we are working with, we being Dave Slater and myself, are currently working with Flex Surveys to determine the project plan. Some of the areas, it's a wide range survey, it's a baseline survey. And so we're looking at things like comp, culture, diversity and inclusion, health and safety, and you can go through the list here. So there's a wide range of topics that we are hoping to garner information in regards to our staff. And so when you look at this particular plan, it's a multi-year cycle, a 4-year plan that would involve 2 full surveys and 2 pulse surveys. So this first survey is to gather baseline data on those subject areas that we spoke about. We also would try to get some demographic information as well. And then from there, we're going to look at developing and executing a year 1 action plan. And then the pulse survey, the subsequent year, is to follow up on those priority subject areas and develop on a year 2 action plan. And then the process repeats itself as in year 3, full survey, action plan. And then in year 4, that pulse survey again, developing an action plan, and then preparing an RFP to refresh the contract. And so that's the update right now for where we are. I think we will be making quick progress with respect to the rollout as we're targeting the date of November 1st for the survey.
Wow. Okay.
Questions? Brenda, you had one? Yeah.
2 points. I'm just concerned that it's too broad a survey and maybe overwhelming for staff. So my thoughts would be to kind of shrink it down a little bit. And the post survey could maybe ask some of those additional questions that weren't covered here. That's my first point. My second point, and I mentioned it earlier, and I think Dave, you followed up hopefully on this, is the ethnic, racial, cultural categorizations. Make sure that they're more modernized and reflect the changing notions of how we count people. There's a lot of research done on this. So make sure that's incorporated so we don't get caught with misnaming of categories and then you miss people. Okay. And my question on the post, like year 2, year 4 survey, full post surveys, you call them pulse survey. Okay.
Yes.
I assume they're shorter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And when you say setting priorities for whom? For HR practices or for the corporation or for the staff? What do you mean by priority areas? Setting priorities.
So, I mean, my experience with these surveys has been that once we identify areas that require significant attention, then
Yeah.
we're going to prioritize based on that. So, and
Okay.
it depends on, it could depend on work group and things like that, but definitely once we get the survey data and we interpret the results, we want to make sure that we start with those priority items that present themselves.
Okay, I think we need to be careful about managing expectations of staff because things will come out in a survey. We may not be able to follow up on all of them. We don't want to create disgruntlement because it's perceived that we're not sensitized and not listening to what they're saying in the survey. So I'm always concerned about managing expectations. So that's part of my idea of keeping it compact with some of the areas of that are being addressed, and then and I don't know how to explain this any better than, but just be careful with when we say setting priorities that staff then don't come to expect that we will be following up on every one of those things because it may not be possible.
Maureen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Whenever I hear of surveys, I like to make sure that as well as check the boxes, that there's always plenty of room for comments.
Yeah.
Because things do get missed in the check the boxes.
Yeah.
And I just would like to confirm that these are anonymous surveys.
Yes, so they are anonymous. That's actually one of the things that Flex Surveys is very adamant about, the anonymity. The second thing, and perhaps this answers Brenda and your concern, Maureen, is typically once you get the data, the leadership team reviews it, but then we have focus groups or sessions where we cascade the information to our teams. And at that point, they also have further opportunity to make comments and provide additional context and feedback. So it's not just the survey is done and then we form the action plan. There's a whole communication process that's built into it as well. And so based on the timing of the year, it's 2 weeks. In Q3, we will start to look at that communication and cascading for 2024.
Any other questions? I have one, Carol. I note here that this is a multi-year cycle that we're going through over 4 years. Is that correct? And
yes.
Why 4 years? Can this be condensed and done over, I don't know, half that time and still get the results we're looking for?
I'm not certain that I understand the question, and perhaps there's a little bit more background in terms of why 4 years was selected, and perhaps Dave, you can chime in there.
Okay. Well, just to clarify, it says here that we're proposing a multi-year cycle.
Yeah.
To ensure measuring that can measure the progress and make course corrections. So I guess each part of the survey will be done, as will be the first part in year 1, year 2, and then during that time, there's going to be some, I guess because we're measuring a progress, because we need a full year to do that. And I guess, it's just a history of this type of survey. We can't do it in a shorter period of time. That's what I'm asking. Or do we have to have this time frame?
I see Jill's hand up, so I'll let her weigh in before I respond.
Yeah, go ahead, Jill. Maybe.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, so I think to the question, and I'll let Dave as well chime in, and Carol, it's not unusual to have a multi-year cycle with these kinds of surveys. They're not done every year. In fact, not even every 2 years, sometimes 3 years, because you want to have spend good time with the outputs of the survey, determining what actions we'll take as an organization, share the intended actions with employees, and then spend time achieving those things and providing updates. So, having a multi-year cycle is not unusual. In fact, I think it would be considered best practice because we recognize that some of the things we're going to hear from staff about are not going to be fixed quickly, right? They could take some time to move forward because they're part of culture change. And so it's finding the balance, right? In terms of, quickly analyzing the inputs we receive and hatching plans to share and then taking action. So that would be what I would offer.
Well, that's fair. That's it's a good answer. So thank you, Joe. Okay. Okay. Any other questions, or Carol, were there anything else that you wanted to add to your update?
No, on this point, no, but the feedback that I received from Maureen and Brenda is duly noted. So I have those notes as we go along. Thank you.
Will we be able to disaggregate and say that a certain percentage are management, a certain percentage are frontline, so you can determine the people's response maybe based on their work status?
So as long as we have 5 responses in a particular category, and this may go to where the person's work as a cluster, then we should be able to get data from that. But we will know when we segment our population or our staff, we will know how many were sent the survey from each category.
So when we get the finalized survey results, will we be able to say X% of frontline staff support this, or versus X% of management or supervisory staff? Will we be able to say that? Will it disaggregate that way?
Once we look at what the questions are, then I would be able to give you a better answer. But typically we are able to, like my experience with these surveys, we typically are able to categorize based on particular classifications, if you will.
Could we ensure that some version I mean, I understand the confidentiality because there may be small numbers in each group, and I understand that. I appreciate that. But I just think it's important because the solutions you come up with for managers and supervisors may be different than what you come up for frontline staff, particularly in the area of promotions. Staff may be frustrated maybe with promotions where the manager may not have that same perspective, right?
Yes.
And vice versa.
Noted. Thank you.
All right. Thank you then. I'm excited by this. So I love numbers and data.
Okay, so thanks, thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. And so if there are no other questions, Grant, were you saying something? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
I wasn't saying anything. Yeah.
All right. So now, now we move on to item number 12, which is very simple. We're moving into a closed session at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll give this a moment for that to happen.
Councillor Crisanti, if you could ask for a motion and to vote on this.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Good idea. Okay. Warren, and seconded. By Maureen. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Maureen. All right. So moved. And now we're going into closed sessions. How long do we need for that? A couple of moments, Grant?
Yes, the team will